This video was sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Messages like these suck. The fact I cannot watch BBC iPlayer outside of the motherland sucks. I also cannot watch epic shows like Twin Peaks and The Twilight Zone on Netflix. Does this all suck? Yes. Fortunately, I have the perfect workaround for you. Surfshark VPN. VPNs are one of the quintessential bits of computing software in the year of our Lord 2020. With the click of a mouse or tap on the screen, you can browse the internet as though you were browsing in another country. This allows for more secure browsing on public Wi-Fi whilst giving you privacy from Snoopies and protection from Goonies. Surfshark unlocks 15 of the largest Netflix libraries in the world and gets you access to streaming sites like Hulu and HBO. I have personally been using it for this very purpose, and I think getting this software is 100% worthwhile. One subscription allows you to run Surfshark on an unlimited amount of devices, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee packed in there as well. For a 3-month free trial and a gigantic 83% off, try Surfshark VPN today by clicking my link down in the description. So, without further ado, let's get on with the review. Why did I pick this episode to review? The Vampires of Venice just has tragedy written all over it. And I don't just mean in terms of story, I mean in terms of production. In an interview with SFX, writer Toby Whithouse claimed that the God Complex was the story he had planned for this episode slot, but Moffat decided that that particular story was too similar to episodes where the characters were, quote, running through corridors and trapped in mazes.
I'm kind of done with running down corridors.
In the same interview, both interviewer and interviewee called The Vampires of Venice a lighter episode, which was undoubtedly used to mask the fact that it was a half-assed job at best. Moffat also thought it would be a good idea to hire people who have never directed Doctor Who before to direct Doctor Who Series 5. I'm definitely in favour of this though, because of the refreshing angle people like Adam Smith brought to the show. I just can't help but wonder if those directors from the original 4 series were fired or just simply left. In case you didn't know, the production blocks for Doctor Who Series 5 were all over the place. They filmed the Angels 2-parter first, meaning those episodes were the first for Smith to get comfy in the Doctor's shoes. Then they filmed Beast and Victory, then the 11th Hour, then the Hungry Earth 2-parter, and then this one alongside Vincent and the Doctor. You can tell this is the case because Smith's haircut suddenly looks really weird in this episode. The tale begins at the Hogwarts School of Bloodlust and Vampirism, where Narcissa Malfoy has taken over. Salador San, the son of a boat builder, has brought his daughter to become a student. I admit I did quite like this rather tongue-in-cheek exchange.
She's my world.
Then we will take your word.
As a little foreshadowing for their intent on world domination. Then I considered the rather melodramatic acting, which transitioned into this rather strange Rory's stag scene. I say strange because of all the random people who were in the pub at this point. I honestly couldn't believe that this mouse of a character would have all these friends in this little village of Ledworth. I could be wrong, of course, but 6 episodes into the series and I don't recognise a single person here except the Doctor. Like a Doctor, it was understandable for his character to believe his poorly timed honesty would cure this awkward romantic triangle. The sudden silence of the scenario, however, just totally threw me off. Out of all of Rory's mates, not one of them says a single word. I would find all this funny had the scenario not been so totally unbelievable. The Doctor getting a punch in the face, now that would have been believable and funny. More utter disbelief swelled when we saw Rory inside the TARDIS. All the opportunities for drama were just skipped over in favour of reaching the episode's Adventureland as fast as possible. When the Doctor said he was going to be sending the pair on a date, I was expecting him to just leave them in Venice with some spending money and some nice outfits. Sadly, he drags the couple to where he thinks would be a nice place to go without even asking them. It's a real shame as well because this is Rory's first adventure in space and time, and he gets next to to no development whatsoever. The trio landed in Venice, which, as you can imagine, isn't actually Venice. They filmed in Trogir, Croatia instead, which was an interesting choice given that historically the Venetians had colonized Trogir, so you'll see some very Venetian architecture in that city. It certainly saved money having to cover up modern tourist attractions and shops, but if you see any canals in this episode, the water is actually CGI or a set build. To cover up the fakery rather unnecessarily, we see the Doctor blurting out how great Venice is. This annoying tour guide persona he puts on does nothing for the situation he believes he's rectifying. You literally just told Rory that he's being cuckolded, and now you're cuckolding him again by showing off!
According to this, I am your eunuch.
See, even this joke right here. Swap Amy with Rose and Rory with Mickey, and I'd be laughing. Unlike Mickey, though, the lack of development for Rory's character and the rushing into the adventure truly spoils this episode. Upon arriving, there's a bloke doing passport checks because apparently they're in the United Kingdom.
We're under quarantine here. No one comes in, no one goes out, and all because of the grace and wisdom of our patron, Signora
Boris Johnson.
This leaves the Doctor to go and stick his nose in where it doesn't belong. Thankfully, Salvador San just heeds the advice of a total stranger, and then...
I think it's time I met this Signora Calvierri.
You've just met him, and you're putting your arm around him? Meanwhile, the couple finally got the chance to catch up, which leads, nowhere.
We are in Venice, and it is 1580.
I know!
Jesus Christ, the laughing is so fake, and oh my god, look at that hat! Meanwhile, the Doctor snuck into Hogwarts and found a bunch of vampire girls. He seemingly snuck back out again to run into Amy and Rory. This false excitement made me want to vomit again, and also, it was suddenly nighttime? This same thing happened in Victory of the Daleks. For a show about time travel, this is pretty sloppy. Then they're in Salvador San's house where they're planning to get back inside Hogwarts again. This scene was just another total cringe fest, mainly due to the extremely unfunny role-playing scenarios the trio came up with.
You can be my brother.
Oh, my nausea. It felt like I was witnessing bullying more than anything else here. Unfortunately, the Doctor and Rory didn't like the idea of Amy sneaking in disguised as a virgin or using gunpowder.
What do you suggest then? We wait until they turn her into an animal?
This was the first of many displays of bad dubbing in this episode. Here are a few others for you to enjoy.
I'm getting married in 430 years.
Go, guys, keep moving, go! The sky, it's like it's boiling.
Did you just say something about mummy? Did you say something about mummy?
That's better.
So Amy and Rory are set up in costumes and put in front of the Vampire Queen. This is where it dawned on me that neither Amy or Rory realised that everyone in Venice was speaking English. Of course, to the audience, it's well known that the TARDIS does the translating for them, but seeing Rory quiver away in this humiliating fashion just reminded me of how little care went into his character as a companion. He doesn't even seem to be that curious about anything that's going on around him. The same can pretty much be said of our 2D blockhead son of a boat builder who was written out of necessity rather than having a personality. Even seeing him in the Rory Stag Night t-shirt made me wince, as though this little boy's t-shirt would fit this hunky man. This also assumes our side character doesn't have any other clothes to wear. He's not exactly homeless. The saddest part was that, according to Wikipedia, Whithouse didn't even like this idea at all because he'd written him to be a tragic character. Guess who wanted the t-shirt idea? He was so obviously not rowing this gondola either. Jesus Christ, this episode is appalling, and we're not even halfway in yet. Then the Doctor and Rory manage to get into Hogwarts through another one of its many secret passages. The pair reach a rather brightly lit set where the Doctor claimed that he couldn't see a thing. Unfortunately, the big dick joke once again felt more like bullying than something genuinely funny. We do have to remind ourselves here that Rory has literally only been in one other story this series, yet is compelled to throw accusations at the Doctor, proclaiming him to be a dangerous individual. This was honestly some of the worst dialogue I've seen in this show, but thankfully this was interrupted by the vampire girls appearing literally out of nowhere. They picked one of the smallest rooms imaginable inside a Welsh castle to film this awkward and horribly lit green scene. Once again, the humour was really forced and didn't make much sense. Amy is asked what she's doing in the school, to which she replies,
I'm from Ofsted.
Is this the character laughing or the actress? Like, come on. I honestly felt sorry for Helen McRory in this episode. I wasn't particularly fond of the teeth flashing thing anyway, but seeing her with them made me laugh more than any other terrible joke this episode had to offer.
So she kissed me. And you kissed her back? No. I kissed her mouth.
So Amy got bitten, and this could have been the moment of redemption for this story. Finally, some stakes. Instead, though, the vampire queen bit her just to hurt her. We know this because this horrendous looking scene got dragged out so that our antagonist could just explain how her vampiric genetics operate. They're aliens disguised as vampires. Oh, God almighty, this has aged horribly. It's even worse when you consider that this image only ever appears for a few seconds at a time, almost as though they were on a budget or something. The gang escaped from the school, where it suddenly became daytime again. This was where we saw the Doctor getting randomly electrocuted by a wooden door. This, amongst the other awful moments in this episode, took the cake for me. The Doctor opened this door earlier by bumping his back into it. Not only was it not electrified, but it was unlocked. Then Isabella, Salador's daughter, was drowned to a hilarious degree. I do love a giant jacuzzi monster. Now, let's try and understand something here. Most of this episode had been dedicated to getting in and out of Hogwarts, right? Yet somehow the Doctor materialized in the throne room. Guess that explains how the Doctor ended up in the stag cake, not. So we had characters teleporting just for a confrontation. Actually, no, this is hardly a confrontation. This is just intention spewing and awkwardly trying to connect this antagonist with the almighty crack. This was the first time in Moffat's series that the Silents were mentioned. Without the knowledge of Series 6, it is interesting to conceptualize the idea that the end of the universe is unanimously titled The Silents. It's quite ominous when you think about it like that. McRory's performance definitely made this idea that much more imaginable, but the moment the Doctor started getting uncomfortably close to the Vampire Queen, like he's gonna give her a big sloppy kiss, the scene just fell to pieces.
Think of the children.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Afterwards, the Vampire Queen got everybody in Hogwarts to pay attention to her.
Your attention, please.
Honestly, the absolute worst of the special effects came out here. Not because of the highly detailed fish monster that walks down the stairs, but for the weird effects on the bodyguard character. I mean, what is going on here? Then the Doctor displayed the ultimate twattiness by silencing all the people in this room. As I was watching the episode, I was genuinely thinking, God, this incarnation runs on and doesn't seem to listen to anybody around him. He just seems to have so little respect for other people. Even the man whose daughter was turned into a vampire and drowned, he just silences him too, just so that he can think. Suddenly the vampire girls are at the bloke's house. This was yet another moment that just didn't work at all. The girls creeping around the windows, laughable. Right at the start of the attack, a vampire is seen coming into the room. I presume somebody pressed the pause button on her here, because for 30 seconds the gang are just staring at a window with all the girls looking in. Salador Sand blew himself up rather hilariously whilst the vampire started to, and I quote, fill the sky with fire. What they actually meant by this was open all the windows after the world's biggest hotboxing event. Yes! In all seriousness though, this just looks awful. It's not nearly as awful as what happened directly afterwards though. Amy is insistent that they get in on the smoking sesh, but the Doctor thinks otherwise.
We don't discuss this. I tell you to do something, Amy, and you do it.
Uncharacteristically, she just spins her hair and runs away. After all the quips in the Green Dungeon, after all of the standing up to the Doctor, she has nothing to say? Rory there, oh Rory. Is this the moment he lashes out at the Doctor after literally dragging the pair into hell after promising them a date, for silencing them, and now ordering his fiancée to fuck off? Rory says,
Thank you.
well, That was it, ladies and gentlemen. Rory's one chance to show some backbone, blown into smithereens. This fact alone makes this fight that took place between them and the prince just diabolical. A "your mum" joke is what stops the prince from devouring Amy, and I swear part of the score for the episode Midnight showed up right at this point. It doesn't fit the tone at all, and seeing him swing that brush around like, oh, the cringe. It's like pitting two babies to fight each other. It doesn't matter who wins because they don't even know what fighting is. When Rory wraps the guy up in a bedsheet or something, this weird sound effect plays. As though they were originally planning on having him transform earlier, but delayed it and forgot to remove the sound effect. This probably explains why he's suddenly no longer wrapped up in the next shot, and why this dub sounds so awful.
Well, I'm hardly gonna smell of cheese and biscuits.
Amy then burned the fish like an insect in a garden with her makeup mirror. Wait, hang on. Didn't the hotboxed church tower just block out the sun? The Doctor then managed to get into Hogwarts for a fourth time and got ready for a kiss with the Vampire Queen again. Then he climbed up the tower, unhindered by guards or anything, where some of the worst effects in the series appear. Yeah, I know. I sound like the big fat nerd guy in The Simpsons. Fucking sue me. Isn't it strange as well that we have rain pouring down out of two gaps in the wall and one with the sun reflecting off the marble? It doesn't look natural at all. A rather obvious stunt double was seen climbing up the tower, and in what I can only describe as anticlimactic fashion, the Doctor flicks a switch and everything's back to normal. The best bit though was when the sun came out and the crowd cheered. Or at least we hear the crowd cheering, because apparently they couldn't be bothered to film that either. I loved how the story tried to redeem itself, seeing the Doctor trying to save the Vampire Queen at the end here. They made it out like this was a race thing, but I was past the point of caring, so just seeing the Vampire Queen melodramatically fall into the water honestly made me laugh. Then the trio are back on the dock with dry hair. Oh. Okay, Rory, this is it. The big task. Do you stay and watch your fiancée have the time of her life that you couldn't possibly provide as a Ledworth Hospital nurse? Or do you think it's time to pack your bags and become a full-term alcoholic?
Yes, I would like that.
Just to end the episode in as bizarre fashion as you can imagine, the background noises of goats, wind, chickens and people are silenced so that Rory can hear the silence. Even though you can hear water and their reverberated voices, I still don't understand what the purpose of this moment was. There's things to come? Stay tuned? Jeez, after this episode, I don't know why anybody would bother. So, did it suck? I was warned by a friend that this episode sucked, and he was not wrong. Maybe I have confirmation bias, but I am honestly struggling to think of something I genuinely liked about it. I think I'd be more forgiving had this not been Rory's first adventure. This is what happens when the grand narrative of the series collides head-on with another writer's imagination. All the continuous elements like the cracks, the silence, the wedding, all seemed to turn what would have been a very mediocre episode into a terrible one. It's filled to the brim with melodrama, two-dimensional characters, bad special effects, horrible dubbing. Cool, just cool into the mouth. Nice. I give Vampires of Venice a 1 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Don't forget my Victory of the Daleks review is available on my Patreon page alongside a whole bunch of exclusive reviews like Torchwood Season 1 and The Lazarus Experiment. What do you think of this episode? Comment below your thoughts or join us for a chinwag on my Discord server, where we'll continue this discussion. Hairbreath, lovely I've got a lot of funny noises and things going through my mouth at the moment.